and welcome to South Side Untold, a Chicago Southsider series where we bring history to life.
In this episode, we're diving into the extraordinary journey of Jesse Binga.
Yes, sir. Jesse Binga was a household name in Chicago. If you didn't know him, you had to be living under a rock.
Well, I've been, living on the South Side Chicago since I was born, and I had no idea about this Binga guy.
Trust me, you are not alone. Unfortunately, during the Great Depression, things turned upside down, and his legacy eventually fell by the wayside.
That's so tragic.
Yeah. Binga was the man, though. He began as a barber and Pullman porter, and then became a millionaire banker right here in Chicago.
No way. Well, check this out. I was reading the Chicago Urban League's 2023 State of Black Chicago report, and they found that the median income for Black households in Chicago is less than $36,000 a year.
Yep.
The thought of becoming a millionaire on the South Side Chicago over 100 years ago is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. But his story is so much more than that. He was responsible for so many other businesses on the South Side Chicago getting a start. And he donated money to all sorts of programs and causes.
Sounds like a stand-up guy.
Well, it depends on who you ask. He did ruffle some feathers.
Wow.
Yeah, we will dive into all of that later. We are going to focus on how he used real estate to help more Black people gain upward mobility.
How did he pull that off?
I'm going to set the scene for you. It's the 1890s. And at that time, there were only about 15,000 Black people in Chicago.
What?
Yep. And Binga was in his 20s and had just arrived in Chicago with $10 in his pocket.
$10? That's barely enough for a meal today.
That's like around $350 today, though.
That's wild. So he really came here with just $10 and became a real estate mogul in a city that didn't have that many Black people.
Exactly. What's even more inspiring is how his upbringing shaped the hustle that made it all possible.
So it wasn't just luck, right?
Nope. It was vision, strategy, and pure hustle. And let's be real, timing plays a huge role too.
All right. I'm all ears. Tell me more.
So here's what's fascinating about Binga. He was born in Detroit in 1865, right after the Civil War ended, and just days before President Lincoln was assassinated.
Can you imagine growing up during such a turbulent time?
Exactly. But his parents, Adelphia and William Binga, instilled in him values of resilience and resourcefulness that most likely helped him in his many ventures later in life.
What did they do?
Well, his mom, Adelphia, was a serial entrepreneur. She managed properties and often took Jesse along as she worked.
Wow.
Yep. He saw firsthand how to handle tenants, manage finances, and navigate the challenges of property ownership.
Wait, he learned all that as a kid? That just goes to show how powerful it can be to teach real-world concepts to kids early on.
Exactly. And his dad, William, was a barber. He dealt with people from all walks of life. That's how he learned to build relationships and earn trust. Skills Jesse ended up using in his own career.
So fast forward, he's in Chicago. What's his first move?
Well, sources say he took on all types of jobs before getting into real estate, such as working as a porter and a street peddler.
Being a Pullman porter was a big deal back in the day.
I know, right? The porters did everything: handle luggage, shine shoes, set up berths, and were highly respected in the Black community.
But Jesse Binga was more of an entrepreneur.
Exactly. So when he saw an opportunity in real estate, he jumped on it.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. A lot of Black families were moving north during the Great Migration, and housing was so limited for them back then.
Yeah, they were unprepared for the living conditions they had to endure on the South Side of Chicago back then.
Oh, wow. What do you mean? How bad was it?
So there was this little strip on the South Side called the Black Belt. It stretched from 22nd to 39th Street along State Street.
The Black Belt? Why was it called that?
It's where most Black folks were forced to live back then. They were basically confined to that area because of segregation and discriminatory housing practices,
That sounds rough. What was it like living there?
Well, more and more Black people were coming from the South, and because of that, it got super overcrowded. The housing was falling apart, and landlords didn't really care to fix anything because, well, they knew people didn't have other options.
That's heartbreaking. How did people even manage to live like that?
It wasn't easy, but here's the thing. Jesse Binga stepped up and really made a name for himself in real estate.
What exactly did he do?
Well, he started small, renting out bed space in his own rented room, back in the 1890s. And
But wait, you mean he literally rented out part of his room to make money?
exactly, then he bought a house near what's now 34th and King Drive. He used it to rent rooms to black boarders, mostly folks coming up from the South looking for work in the stockyards and other industries on the South Side.
Wow, that sounds like he was doing Airbnb before Airbnb even existed.
Yep. He was ahead of his time. Most of his renters were workers in the stockyards. As his business grew, he realized he needed an office to keep track of everything and stay organized.
That makes sense. Did he already have the cash for an office?
Not really. He was reinvesting most of his money into new leases and properties, but in 1902, he spotted a vacant office near his home on 34th and King Drive. He jumped on it, even though he only had a few bucks.
But how did he pull that off?
He scraped together $5 for the down payment and half the monthly rent. Then he bought a desk for $1.50 and some old chairs and a table. And boom, he had an office.
What about business cards? I mean, we have LinkedIn now, but those were a huge deal back then, right?
Funny you ask. He didn't have the cash for those either, but he needed them to hand out to newcomers arriving in the Black Belt. So he talked a printer into giving him 25 sample cards before committing to an order for 1,000.
He sounds really scrappy.
Absolutely. He strategically handed out those sample cards to get deals going, then used his earnings to pay for the full order. By 1902, his name appeared in the city directory, Jesse Binga & Co. at 3331 South State Street.
And that's how you start building something from the ground up. Speaking of building, did you know local newsletters like Chicago Southsider are a great way to advertise and spread the word about your business?
That's so true. Local newsletters have hyper-local audiences that are already tapped into what's happening in their community. It's a smart way to connect directly with people who care about supporting local businesses.
Every business needs some form of marketing, whether it's getting customers through the door or building brand awareness.
Exactly. And in another episode, we're going to dive into how Jesse Binga used advertising to take his business to the next level. The man knew how to market himself and really connect with his audience.
Eric, I can't wait to hear more about that. Oh, and if you're a business owner listening, don't sleep on Chicago Southsider. It's the perfect way to get your message in front of a local audience that actually cares.
Absolutely. There's so much you can learn from Binga, both the wins and the lessons.
Okay, so what happened after he got his real estate office?
That's when he really got to work. He started buying rundown properties in the Black Belt, fixing them up and then selling or renting them to black families.
Wow, he had skills. Mama taught baby boy a lot.
Oh yeah, he didn't just dabble into real estate. He studied his craft and mastered it.
That's what I'm saying. You can't half-step anything. If you're going to do it, you got to really know your stuff.
For sure. Binga did it all. He handled the plumbing, acted as the sales agent, managed the finances, you name it.
He knew that business inside and out.
Sure did. At the time, a lot of real estate companies wouldn't even work with black people. So what Binga was doing gave families a chance to own homes and improve their living conditions.
That's amazing. He was basically creating opportunities where none existed.
Exactly. And he was also creating enemies.
Enemies? What do you mean?
Let's just say not everyone was cheering for his success. Things started to get dangerous.
Dangerous? You got to tell me more.
Ooh, I will. But not today. You'll have to tune in to episode 2 for that story.
All right, you got me hooked.
Hey, well, we are wrapping up this episode, but don't forget to subscribe to Chicago Southsider for updates. Links are in the comments below. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next.
Well, thanks for joining South Side Untold. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think.